What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Horror Room Live. Thank you for joining us tonight. I have a special guest with us today. He is a author of a amazing comic novel, by the way. He's actually sent me a copy, and it is getting a lot of news. I'm rocking the shirt too. I'm rocking the t-shirt, and
Much
it's getting
appreciated.
a lot of controversy, and it's getting a lot of news right now. It's called The Pale Duke. I have with us Rob Tsunami. Rob, welcome to the Horror Realm.
Thank you for having me, Travis.
It's a pleasure, man. It's a pleasure. Thank you for the T-shirt and the comic book, man.
Oh, no
This is
problem.
it's been a fun read. It's been a fun
Thank you.
read. So tell everyone who's watching a little bit about the Pale Duke.
So, The Pale Duke is basically my telling of the origin story of death, like Grim Reaper, and it's presented from the villain's perspective. So, rather than have him as like a side character that just kind of pops up every once in a while, it's like completely his thought process from the beginning to his story arc is anti redemption arc. It kind of works in reverse where it gets like worse rather than something nice and pleasant.
So, what gave you the inspiration and the idea for this story?
All right. So back in '96, I had an accident, and it's a big scar. Um, and it left me without the ability to draw or anything. I was kind of out of commission for 5 months. It was like a major surgery. So I started writing as part of my therapy. I started writing the outline of the book, which over time it had changed. I'd do some, put it down, it changed, put it down for a couple years, and then in 2020 I got like most people got laid off right after the pandemic. I picked it back up and I really like focused on getting it done. And I had put out two comic books, and it was like the first couple chapters kind of as like a prototype thing before I actually like put the full the 136-page graphic novel out there. So it started from a lot of I try to work a lot of fantasy stuff in there in the Lovecrafty sense, but I actually put a lot of like personal stuff in there. So when you read it, you kind of get a sense of like oh maybe this is like a little close to home. So I kind of did the reverse, and I put like all that I could, like a lot of like personal like crappy stories to really get the impact in there, I guess.
Because I can imagine having a near death experience.
Yeah.
I've had a couple in my life, and and like I also work in. I'm a funeral director and mortician, so I work in the death care industry. So I think about death probably more than the average human being does in my own mortality. But I can imagine like that is something that it causes you to live your life a little differently, think a little differently. And like I definitely seen in your book that like you make death present as much as possible.
Yeah, it's kind of like the reverse of what you normally see in a horror story, where the main villain or character kind of like pops up at random times instead of really getting into the like it's more of a character study on the actual like villain, and he's shaped by his surroundings, but it doesn't dictate his behavior, you know. So, and I kind of I try to narrow down all the lines to things that are going to stick with you, like really impactful lines instead of like a lot of like bullshit and filler. I'm like, when you're doing like a graphic novel, it's a little different. You gotta kind of like shorten what you want to say into like these really like powerful, like kind of like bite-sized things instead of the artwork fills out the rest of the story, rather than if I was just to do like a straight novel, I'd have to like fill it in. So I try to get a lot of impact with each line that I write. So there's like many drafts before it comes down to like the bite size parts.
And you did all the artwork yourself?
Yeah, it took a long friggin' time.
I bet. I mean, this. I mean, I don't know if everybody can see it, but the artwork in this is absolutely beautiful. It is absolutely amazing. So, I mean, how long did it take from? Because I know you said you were laid off. You had it there. How long did it take to, get the artwork done, get the story done, and get it into
the first
this form?
The first two books, which were just comic book size, and I think they were like 40 something pages each, which is pretty much the first like maybe 5 chapters that I put out there, and that took about a year. And then the beginning of 2023, I did the last like 2 or 3 chapters, and then I put out the full graphic novel. So it was a big work in progress, but I already have like a couple more like fleshed out. I'm going to be working on a second one very soon. So hopefully every like Halloween ish, I'll be able to put out one, because I got a day job too. So it's like hard to,
It's tough.
you got to fill your evenings with late nights.
Now, one of the things that has come up is that this book, this graphic novel, has been banned by several different websites or publications. Tell us a little bit about that.
So there's some really rough content in there, and
it is
specific panels that, like, even when I put the 21 plus label on it, once they catch wind of it, they kick it the fuck off there. So I'm like in a sub genre, and I can't really put much of it out there, because even visually and the text is pretty like rough content at times. So I don't know. I guess they don't like that very much. So that's why people like us talk.
Yes. But so when you were creating this, because listen, it's some rough shit in here. Some rough shit in here. Did you at any point think about, like, oh my goodness, this might not be relatable or to the mainstream audience, or this might get some criticism? Maybe I should tell back a little bit, or were you? At any point did I think in your mind?
Because I had done so many drafts like over the years, and then it went from like a kind of your basic revenge story kind of slasher thing, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go full like Macbeth, where I put all these kind of elements and do subtle things, like it goes from black and white pretty much to color at the end, kind of like a Wizard of Oz kind of thing. There's a sense of cold to hot as the book progresses. So I do like subtle little things in there. I wanted to do the reverse of what most, I guess, authors or directors do, where they put in subtle pieces of themselves in it. I wanted to put things that actually like happened verbatim, because I'm from a not so good like area. So it's some of there's a couple stories that are like verbatim things that had happened. So I was like, I'm just going to put in there, change the names and things, just so it feels as though like I'm telling you the story just from my personal life. That's the sense I wanted people to get from the material. Like, oh, there's cool like fantasy kind of more Lovecrafty shit in there, but there's some like dark, like actual real life horror elements too, that are things that had shaped the character in his past. So
was this? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah.
No, but I would say, so was this some kind of way therapeutic to you to get some of these dark images out of your head and getting them onto paper for other people to see?
Yeah, it's there to hurt your feelings. It's not a feel good thing. You know, like
Yeah.
at the end of a movie like The Exorcist, you're like, oh, I still kind of feel shitty at the end.
Yucky, yeah.
It's not really like a rainbow and sunshine ending. So that's what I kind of want. It's very like nihilistic and self-serving, but that's the character. You know what I mean? It's a the character's supposed to be bringing forth the apocalypse. So there's not any like really redeeming qualities, but I also want you to understand the motivation of the character because he's shaped by his environment pretty much, which is like a post-apocalyptic, like after the pandemic has grown to a degree where they've actually quarantined this one area and that's where he lives. So it's like Gotham times 10, you know.
Yeah.
It's like the worst of the worst, and it's like quarantined off, so you just have this just sense of like garbage and defeat. So I'm trying to put the feeling that you get from the worst parts of movies that really like fuck you up, you know, when you see like a train spotting, like the baby scene, you're like, oh god, fucking damn. That I'm trying to put as many of those kind of like things in the book, so it kind of like hits you like a combination.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's what it does. I mean, definitely, like the way you explain it is perfect. Like one thing about reading this book is that like you feel a little disturbed even after you're done. Like there is no necessary happy ending
No,
because all of the fucked up things.
there's no dark comedy or any of that cheeky. There's no cheeky bullshit in it. You know, it's straight.
Yeah.
You know, Hereditary is. You're like, oh man,
Yes.
fuck. You know,
I was thinking that in my mind.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to go. It's a graphic novel, but kind of written more like a novel would be. You know what I mean? It's no like superhero-y kind of parts. It's as if death actually like walked among you in the daytime, and you're like, oh, all right, I guess that's a fucking thing now.
Because I mean, it is a fucking it's a definitely an original concept. It's an interesting concept because, like, you know, we all have an expiration. We don't know when the fuck that it's going to be. We don't know how that's be. We can only imagine. But like, it's a creepy aspect to think that death is like walking amongst us, and just can pick any of us at one time.
Yeah,
like there's this actual figure, death, and now
he's so OP, like overpowered, that there would be zero that you could do. You know what I mean? Like
there's no way to interfere.
Yeah, if a tiger attacked you, you're just like, well, like fucking this is the end.
But I mean, but isn't it the way life is? I mean, like, you know, life ends so fucking quickly. Like most people think that, I mean, even in life right now, most people think that when it comes to medical research and so forth, that everybody can get cured. If you get something, you can, the doctors can do something. But the doctors in our country, believe it or not, we're still kind of like medieval times. Nobody really gets cured. More people die than get cured.
And the medical industry is very cold. Like in my instance, like when a broken metal plate like went through my wrist, 7 tendons, the artery, the nerve, blood was shooting out, everything. They had to call in a laser surgeon to reattach it, but within 24 hours I was kicked out of the hospital, and I almost bled out. And they were just like, all right, get the fucking later, buddy. Pat you on the head. Come back later. Do some therapy. We'll see how that works out for you. So there was a lot of, I got a real sour taste in my mouth about that. And then certain other situations that had happened. Like there's the instance with the cops killing a friend of mine. That's like a verbatim story. I saw a friend of mine's sister get hit by a car. like a few yards from me, so that's in there too. So it's like I reread my own shit in preparation for this because I hadn't read it since I put it out in, last October. And the first part of the book still, I'm still like, ugh.
Yeah.
It still bothers me like reading it after. I'm like, but that's the sense that's where I want to grab you, because you're the first chapter you're reading a mental suicide note pretty much. So you're basically with this character, you're like, oh, what's going on? And it's his thought process on the way home to his last like hour. And it just kind of happens abrupt. Like I murked the main character in the first chapter pretty much just to, bring him back, because he's like, I kind of use the chosen one kind of trope. There's a couple things that you got kind of thrown in as familiar. That's why I use the Grim Reaper. Plus, in media, as cool as Death or the Grim Reaper is, he's not really present in things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Final Destination it's Death, but it's a presence you can't see. You really don't
Correct.
see the actual like character like in stuff like Master of the Red Death. You kind of see him at the end, but it's always kind of shrouded in mystery. I think Hellboy 2 had a really good version of like the Grim Reaper and his stuff, but he's not like the main character, as prevalent as he is in history all over the world in all kinds of cultures. There's not really like a main focus on that character. So that's kind of what I wanted to like a self-insert, but with those elements too. So it's familiar. It's a familiar fear.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people use the clown, like clowns.
Mm-hmm.
A people's phobia.
And it's crazy because like as you were talking about the character of the Grim Reaper or Death represented in horror movies. I mean, not even horror movies, just movies in general.
Mm.
A lot of times it's a jokey slapstick character.
Yeah, like Bill and Ted.
Like Bill and Ted, yeah.
I think that's to take the sting off of the uneasiness of just the character of Death. That's like once they show up that you're like, oh, I guess this is done. There's no like bargaining or whatever usually. So they kind of they'll take the sting off of the element to kind of fucking get a little funny with it. But I wasn't going for that.
So I have a quick question for you.
Mm-hmm.
In this country, especially, so I've been to other countries throughout the world, and but one thing about this country is death is so taboo. Nobody do not want to talk about death in this country. We love watching people get killed in horror movies, and we love in the action movies. We're fun. Gun owners are like, oh my goodness, I can't wait for someone to break my house so I can fucking shoot them. So we think about killing and we think about death, but we don't want to talk about the actual aspect of death. Why do you think that is in this country?
People don't like to be faced with their own mortality. It's different if you're just watching it with whatever movies or video games or whatever. So you think that you get numb to it, but it's not real. It's not dealt with like in like other cultures, like Mexican culture, where it's almost like respected in a way,
celebrated.
It's celebrated, or other. There's more a respect aspect to it. I think in this country, it especially a lot of people get cremated and stuff. So there's kind of a disconnect with that, and it's talking about it but not being about it. But when you're really other people that I know have been through like tragic events, it's a little easier to talk because they kind of know what you're talking about. You know what I mean? If you haven't been like that close to it personally, You know, everybody has relatives that pass away and stuff, and you know, whether it be dementia or cancer or something like that, which are awful things. But when you experience something yourself, it's a different thing. Because before I didn't give a shit like that. I would watch those kind of like horrible traces of death and shit like that, and not really care. But after I had my accident, I was like, that shit kind of like it bothered me. After that, I'm like, ugh. So you get a different well, vibe. It takes a while to deal with things like that, but you can't let it like rule you, because
Yeah.
you can get gobbled up by depression. You know what I mean? If
Hmm.
you have like good outlets to or people around you where you could unload a little bit, uh, that helps. But that's pretty much the book. You know what I mean? There's a lot of shit that I mean, you can't really. It's not a pleasant thing. Like, hey, you want to hear about a bunch of fucking bullshit that I grew up around and saw? That's super unpleasant. No, that's a mood. That's a definite mood killer. So if you put it in a book, you can like pass it off and run away real quick and deal with the results afterwards.
So, what has been the response so far? Your book's been out since October. What has been the overall response?
Been pretty positive. Everybody's in agreement that it's pretty fucking dark, which I
Yeah.
get. But I haven't got any like bad reviews. It's just I gotta kind of it's almost like a seasonal thing where it's more acceptable to try to kind of push this around the Halloween kind of time. But there is random like horror expos like during the year, so I got to start like kind of going there and make myself familiar, because I'm kind of a shut in. I'm like a functioning introvert. Like
Hmm.
I'll do my thing when I have to, but I'm more comfortable just like, here's my stuff. What do you think? And go from there. So I'm my own worst publicist.
I'm telling you now, horror conventions are the way to go for you.
Yeah.
I'm being dead serious for anybody who does horror comics, graphic novels. Like I've bought so many I go to a lot of horror conventions. I bought so many graphic novels and horror comic books from indie authors. Of course, I've never even heard from, and it was because it was right in front of me, and I was like, "Wow!" I've become a fan. So, I mean, I would definitely recommend you to
Yeah,
definitely.
it's so much easier to put your stuff out now, other than like even back in the 90s, because of social media and stuff. People can instantly get hooked onto your stuff, or as simple as like a cool like picture of me, and it's like, oh, like just from the cover of this book, I've gotten a lot of interest. So that's helped. I just have to get into more uh, arenas or whatever, do more podcasts and stuff like this one, with real fans. You know what I
Yes,
mean?
yes. Now, have you always been a horror fan?
Yeah, yeah. When I'm an older gentleman, so I
I
grew
am
up.
too. So.
Yeah, I grew up in the '80s. So on the East Coast, we kind of had a Boston / Rhode Island station, channel 38 or 36. It was a UHF station, and they would do creature double features. So that's where when I was real little, I all the Universal monster movies and shit, Frankenstein, the classics. I grew up with that, and then graduated to the the real bad stuff from the '70s, exploitation stuff, and the stuff in the '80s. And then I'm a big comic book person too, and I was into a lot of the horror comics like Swamp Thing and Werewolf by Night, Tomb of Dracula. That's like a big influence on my writing. Yep, yep.
I grew up in the '80s too, and I grew up on the East Coast as well, and like every Saturday, well, of course, I had the Saturday morning cartoons growing
Yeah,
up,
yeah.
and then after that, they would show like a double feature, and like it would be like at 12 noon, they would show a double feature of like it would be like two action movies, like '80s action movies, so and then you would get two horror movies,
Mhm.
and I used to fucking love Saturdays, and I would sit in front of the TV for hours.
Even Saturday nights, they had like they had like the Elviras and the Svengoolies.
Yes.
And, I think on the USA Network back in the day, excuse me, they had Rhonda Shear up all night or
Mhm.
whatever, and they would play like a lot of like B movies like Basket Case and just random shit. Like who the fuck? So, somebody's picking some deep cuts over there. So that it was a good time. Plus, like most teenagers, then you'd go to whatever your we had before Blockbuster bought everything up. We had like a Major Video in Rhode Island. That was one of the bigger ones. You'd go there, rent like three things you never heard of, or maybe you saw in a Fangoria magazine, rent like three and watch like three horror movies. So by the end of the year, you've probably seen like 500 friggin' movies.
Yeah. But like but I mean the 80s and even the early 90s were definitely for me were the golden
Yeah.
age of horror because like you said we had the VHS horror was promoted on TV like local network TV.
Yeah, but you would get
But
the
now I
censored
mean
versions.
yes,
Yeah.
you get the censored version. But you would watch something that you normally wouldn't see,
Mhm.
Like I remember like the movie Chud. I did
Yeah.
not know what the fuck Chud was, and it came on that Saturday. And Chud is an amazing fucking
Mm.
horror movie.
Yeah.
And like, so I got to see a lot of those. But now we're in this era where we're into the streaming era,
Yeah.
and it's great because you can watch a lot of the older stuff, and you can watch a lot of newer stuff that you wouldn't
Mm.
normally notice. But there's so much of it. Like there's so much of it that like it's overwhelming.
Yeah, yeah. It's almost like anybody and everybody like the easiest thing to do is like a horror movie. So you're kind of getting like pseudo horror fans that are making stuff like a lot of the stuff on Tubi. Like, oh, that looks cool, and you're like, oh, that's not cool at all. Yeah. I
So
think
like,
bad CGI ruins a lot of like modern horror movies. Unfortunately, like I
mhm,
despise CGI blood. I just don't. I fucking can't
I do
stand it.
too.
Yeah, it looks so bad.
Fucking hate it.
Yeah,
Fucking hate it. But like, it's kind of sad because there's a lot of good like low budget horror movies out there, but they get bogged down
yeah,
because there's so many, and most people don't know about it because you're just skipping through compared to going to a video store and you seeing a fucking poster, or you done rented demonic toys and you see the trailers beforehand of a whole bunch of other indie horror movies. You're like, oh
mhm,
my goodness, next time I go in, I'm gonna go see that. And I feel like that's missing.
yeah. Like over the years, there's a couple like diamonds in the rough that come like the Void. That
Mhm.
was I thought that was really good. That's kind of like a lower budget but done well. What the hell was that other movie? The Rise of Leslie Vernon. I know it came out a couple of years ago, but it's like I don't want to ruin it. There's a beginning part to that name. Like that was done creative. Dead Snow. Like that's another kind of like lower budget like zombie movie from I think Norway. It was like pretty cool. But you gotta see a lot of shit where you're like halfway through the movie, you're like, I might want to shut this off.
Yeah. You gotta do a lot of weeding now, and
Mhm.
but that's why I do love this show that I'm getting to shine a spotlight on some great stuff that's out there, so people can hopefully
Yeah.
watch it and just get missed or bogged down. Like your comic book, I mean, this is an amazing. Listen, if you're into graphic novels, comics, and you like fucking horror, I mean,
Yeah.
Hell Duke is right up the fucking alley. But
It's
warning,
more in
warning,
the vein of what
it,
the Walking Dead books were, where you're like, this is fucking
yes,
this is rough. So that's what I'm trying to do. I might even try to do like script it out and then maybe shop it around after I do the second book. But I gotta see about that because Netflix is giving everybody deals these days. So who knows what the possibilities could be?
this would be an excellent movie. This would be an
Mhm.
amazing movie because it's something original. Like it's 1% but what I was going to say was warning. This is not for everyone. This is definitely
No.
this. And if you're easily disturbed or even offended, this is something not for everyone.
Yeah,
But like,
that's a vote
if
of
that's up your fucking alley,
yeah, that's a vote of approval for me.
yeah. but if you like that kind of shit,
Mm,
oh my goodness, you have to fucking grab this one.
yeah. Thank you very much. I'm glad. I'm glad. I'm glad you liked it.
All right, so listen, so we're gonna switch it to now to something fun. Okay,
Mhm.
so I recently did. So I'm big into rankings. I'm big into rankings. So growing up in the '80s, what would you say are your top five, in no particular order, top five horror movies that really left an impression on you, even today?
Just from the 80s?
Let's do '70s and '80s. Let's do '70s and '80s.
That's pretty much my wheelhouse. So, I mean, there's the usual suspects like The Exorcist, but that 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 was one of those movies that like fucked me up the first time I seen it. I think I was like 11, and I was like, "What the?" Because you're used to like Friday the 13th and stuff like that that you see when you're young. You're like, "Oh, I'm not supposed to watch this," but there's a tiny bit of camp to it where you're like, "Oh, all right."
Hmm.
The Exorcist was not that at all. So, um, Castle Freak is one of my favorite movies, and that's kind of like a one that not many people know. It's based on a short story of Lovecraft. I believe it's a Stuart Gordon film, but they have Barbara Crampton's in it, and fuck was it? Jeffrey Combs is in it. Uh, Dead Alive, the Brain Dead, like that's another one of my all time. It's so over the top,
It
but
is.
self aware of its over the topness that the Thing, Zombie, the Italian one. I think it goes under Zombie 2 sometimes, but it's actually
Mhm.
just Zombie. The original Frankenstein was a big influence, but that's just from one of the first like horror movies that I seen when I was like little. That I was like, oh, I don't like that. America Werewolf in London, just because the jump in VF effects that movie, the same thing with The Thing. Those two movies like set the bar for practical effects.
Mhm.
So those, I guess that would be my, if I was on a island kind of list, if I had to really, but those are probably like the most like influential that I was like, I can watch those anytime. I like a lot of stuff, but that would be my top 10, I guess.
Dead Alive. I remember seeing the poster to that, or like the
Mm,
billboard where I went to the movie theater, and had the fucking eyeballs and shit. Like it was like, what the fuck is that? And
mm.
like, it was one of those things that definitely draw me in. And like you say, it is 100% over the top. It's batshit crazy.
To this day, it still has one of the goriest scenes ever. Put that the lawnmower scene like towards the end of the movie.
Jeez.
It's so ridiculous. Like I've shown that movie to people, and they're like getting sick and laughing at the same time because it's so like. Uh, I was a fan of Peter Jackson because I believe Bad Taste came out a year or two before that, and
I believe so.
then I remember seeing that on like a bootleg because that movie was pretty fucking disgusting. But Dead Alive was definitely mind blowing, and it's super funny. There's like so many quotable lines in that movie, and the effects minus maybe the rat monkey was kind of a little wonky, but overall the effects are pretty like on point and all that acting and stuff. So I highly recommend that for the gore fans if you haven't seen that one
Yes,
yet. Before he was Mr. Lord of the Rings.
exactly. Now we're speaking about original movies
Mm,
and so forth. Like, so we're now in the age when it comes to especially big budget horror movies. We're getting reboots like crazy. Everything, no one has original fucking ideas. Reboot, reboot, reboot.
mhm.
What are your feelings of reboots?
most of them, I think, are made just to keep the IPs, like they keep doing with Pet Cemetery. Like the remake was awful, and then they did the prequel, and that was bad too. You're like, who's doing these movies? I I I rather see original stuff, but even some of the original stuff rips off so much, like movies that we already like a lot of the Rob Zombie stuff. It's like you're just taking stuff from movies that are better than, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The white trash murderers. Like I saw all those movies that you're doing that with.
Yeah.
But there's a couple gems that come out. You know, like The Void is newer, like 2011. Get Out is a original, you know, but with a budget. I'm trying to think of what else. Was that one with the guy that was blind and the kid broke into his house or whatever?
Yeah, oh fuck, what's that called? It's called
Don't
Jesus.
Blink or some shit. I forget what it was.
Don't speak or don't. I don't know. If someone's watching, you know the name of it, put it in the comments. But I think it was called Don't Breathe. Don't Breathe.
Don't Breathe. Yeah.
Don't Breathe. That's what it's called.
See, like stuff like that's like cool. Stop rebooting things you don't need to, where you're loosely taking the source material and just kind of doing your own like thing with it. Yeah, stop making Halloween movies, please.
I was about to say that because I mean, there's some original shit out that was great, like Barbarian, even like the X series is great. But like, I don't want to see, and I fucking love the Halloween series up until the last couple. But I love Michael Myers as a character. I do not want to see another fucking Halloween movie. I don't want to see another Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie.
Yeah, well, if they would have the last reboot when they did the 3, if they would have just did the first one and just were out, that was good. But they got progressively worse, and the last one was kind of insulting. It was so dumb. Like the characters are so dumb. Yeah, I'm like, there was a couple like good like scenes in it, but I don't know. And they're gonna reboot it again, possibly in a series. I keep seeing pop up here and there, so
I hope not. I'm not watching it.
They're throwing around this same idea for Friday the 13th, I believe, on the Peacock series. Is they're doing like a prequel thing.
Yeah. So, Friday the 13th, they're definitely doing it. I think it's called Camp Crystal Lake.
Yeah.
But yeah, and they're definitely doing it. I actually might watch that because it's supposed to be something a little different where you get to see Jason Voorhees as a child. We never got to really see that in the movies.
There was a comic book series where they went into like the origin story, like of his father, and some maybe they'll take some elements of that and put it in there. I'm interested. I'll give anything a good like 4 or 5 episode watch before I'm like, I'm out, or I stay in. But you never know. You get into a series these days, and sometimes it's over in a season. You know, like Lovecraft Country and the last Swamp Thing series are really good, but it's just one.
Oh, that was so good.
They run out of money, and you're like, all right, 10 episodes, I guess. Thanks.
Swamps, the DC, what was it called, the DC Universe, but they got it sold to, I think Max owns that now. But like the Swamp Thing reboot was so fucking good, and Derek Mayers, who plays Jason in the last in the Friday the 13th reboot, was so fucking good at that.
Yeah.
And but I don't think people had that app, which was a DC Universe. I don't think people.
The app was new when the series dropped, for one, and then before they even finished filming the last episode, the series pretty much got canceled because it was too expensive to produce. And something with Louisiana, something happened where the studios stopped getting a tax break or something, so it just kind of. And then it was bought out by another company, and they were just like, whatever. But I know James Gunn is doing the whole DC universe, and Swamp Thing is one of the movies they're supposed to do. And the guy, his name escapes me right now, the guy who directed Logan is supposed to be the director, I guess, of the Swamp Thing movie. So if they stick, It's supposed to be more of a horror element, like the last 10 episode series, whenever that was, like 2009, I guess. So I'm looking forward to that, but even that won't be for like another 2 years easy. They got to do all the
I
cape.
fucking love Swamp Thing.
Yeah, that one of my like
I love
biggest,
Swamp Thing.
yeah, one of my biggest like favorite fucking thing is Swamp Thing. So
Okay, so Rob, where can everyone find you, my friend?
I'm on all the usual Facebooks and TikToks, but my main thing is Instagram, and it's just savage75_, and you'll find like my other links through there. And I also have the digital version of the Pale Duke on Amazon. And if you want a physical copy, you get it directly from me. So just DM me and well, I'll send it to you. I'll sign it. Might even throw in a t-shirt.
Like the one I'm wearing right here.
That one.
All right, Rob, it's been an absolute blast having you on, man. It's been fun. Listen,
Thank
everyone,
you very much.
go ahead. Listen, you can get the digital copy, but I recommend the physical copy. I mean, this is a beautiful book, and like he said, he does autograph it as well.
Mhm.
It is absolutely beautiful. The pages, like he said, it goes from the black and white to the color. I mean, it's a great book. Go out, Instagram, message him, and grab a copy of this bag.
Find me.
Yes, find him. All right, buddy.
All right. Thank you very much.
It's been fun.
Right. Anytime.
No problem. No problem. All right. And everybody, if this is your first time coming to the Horror Room, please hit the like and subscribe button and show some support. All right. Well, this has been another Horror Room Live. I'll see you guys next time. Take care.